Good morning, it is filled to the brim, and it is Friday, April 29th, and I'm talking about being open to the Lord. And we've talked about some things that block us from that openness. We're talking about how God has more, but we have to be open to it. And one of the things that block us from that openness is what I call compassion fatigue. It is a term that is used in a lot of places where people do ministry or work that is helping other people, and we can begin to feel compassion fatigue. And we find this even alluded to in Scripture. Paul writes, Galatians 6:9, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." To not become weary in doing good. The truth is this, we can feel weary. And what does compassion fatigue look like? I described it yesterday. I'm going to describe it again. It becomes an indifference to charitable appeals on behalf of those who are suffering, experienced as a result of the frequency or number of such appeals. In other words, you have been given out, and as a result of so much demand on the giving out that you've been doing spiritually, emotionally, to people, that you begin to feel overwhelmed, you start to feel helpless, you start to feel hopeless, you start to feel irritable, you start to feel numb, you start to feel detached. And these are some of the red flags to having compassion fatigue, feeling almost irritable that somebody's asking you to pray with them or to encourage them. That irritability begins to set in. Even you see that in the lives of even the disciples, when the moms are bringing the babies to Jesus and they're forbidding that those children come to Jesus, and Jesus says, "Do not forbid them to come to me." You see it in the life of the disciples with irritability that they begin to have toward the need that is expressed, that irritability. So, and Paul writes about it, and we saw in the life of Moses, I talked about yesterday, how he actually gave in to compassion fatigue and disobeyed the Lord. He allowed his irritability to become angry with the people, and rather than speaking to the rock as the Lord had asked him to, told him to, commanded him to, he struck the rock. And so compassion fatigue can be dangerous, and we've got to be aware of it and to see the signs in our own lives. And what do we need to do when we start to say, you know what, I am starting to feel fatigued in giving compassion to other people? Well, yesterday I also said how when we begin to discover these red flags in our life, we have to recognize something. And this takes a humility in our lives, that we actually have stepped out of the yoke with Jesus. And I read yesterday, I'm going to read it today again, Matthew 11:28 through 30. Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Those of you who are weary, Paul writes, do not become weary in doing good. We can become weary from many things. And even those of us that we say we want to be used by God, we are being used by God, we can become weary and burdened, and we can become so burdened, taking on the burden of other people, that we don't recognize we have left the yoke with the Lord. He says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." So we recognize, listen, I'm feeling irritable right now. Somebody's asking me to pray with them or do something, give out, and I'm just feeling irritable, or I'm feeling numb, I'm feeling detached. Just recognize there's no condemnation in that, actually. It's actually a very healthy emotional thing to recognize, listen, I got to make sure I'm in that yoke with Jesus, and do some self-care here as an instrument of the Lord. My temple needs to be cared for. It's interesting in Scripture, in the Old Testament, that the prophet Isaiah speaks about this as well. Isaiah 40, if you read the whole chapter, you'll find that there is some compassion fatigue going on here. I'm going to read you the portion in the end of that chapter. Isaiah 40:27 through 31. This is what the prophet declares to the people. Why do you complain, Jacob? Why do you say, Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord? My cause is disregarded by my God. Part of compassion fatigue is when we start to complain about things. We start to complain about the need, complain about the ministry, complain about, people desiring for us or asking us to be, used by God, coming, helping them. We start to complain. Complaining is a certain kind of mentality. It's actually a reflection of what our thought life is really about. It's a very negative place when we start to complain because we have shifted our focus from the Lord. Complaining people don't have their eyes fixed on Jesus. They have their eyes fixed on other things. And the prophet is saying, why do you complain, Jacob? Why do you say, Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord? My cause is disregarded by my God. What else does complaining have to do? Well, it becomes a poverty spirit where you're saying, Lord, you're using me, but you're not giving back to me. Or God's not listening to me. You begin to feel like I'm alone in this. God, you put this on me. There's no help. And we begin to complain. And what happens is an exposure of what our mental script is in our head, where our thoughts are residing, where our emotions are residing, and even what our perspective on the Lord is really about. We become complaining toward Him and kind of in a self-centered way. It's up to my own strength that I have to do these things, Lord, that you have asked me to do. A complaining spirit. So Isaiah the prophet is confronting the people in this. And he says, have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He will not grow tired or weary, and his understanding no one can fathom. Now listen, later Jesus says, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened. Isaiah says, he will not grow tired or weary, and his understanding no one can fathom. And then he goes on to say, hey, he gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Get in the yoke with him. Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. Listen, this is part of life. We are frail. We are limited. Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. Other versions say, those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. What is the answer for compassion fatigue? Well, it's waiting on the Lord. It's resetting yourself. Yes, it's stepping away to wait on the Lord. And many times when we're feeling that fatigue, we need to take extended times to get reset on the Lord. If you're tired and you're weary, maybe you've been doing good things. As scripture says, let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Maybe you've been about doing good things, but all of a sudden you're feeling compassion fatigue. You're feeling weary. Possibly you've stepped outside of the yoke. Maybe you just need to get alone with the Lord for a period of time that's extended. You spend time with the Lord, but you need more. You need more because your tank needs to be filled up. Whatever it may be, the Lord wants to say to you, come on, let's address this. You're not to continue on. Don't continue on in the compassion fatigue, but rather wait on the Lord. Renew your strength. This is his promise. This is who he is. This is who Jesus is. He says, come on, your yoke is with me, and I'm the lead in this. I'm the lead ox in this. Be in part of my yoke, because my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Pray about this word. Let's remove the obstacle of compassion fatigue in our lives and be renewed by the Lord. More about this tomorrow. God bless you.